So we are, again, we are on Spin Room. This is live from SCI-Arc. Elena and I are here in the school, while all of the reviews are running on Zoom. Actually, she's jumping into a review in 10 minutes. But we wanted to at least say hi and then, introduce what is going to be in the next 2 days, or green room for Spin Room. We're going to have Elena as a host this afternoon, and I'm going to be a host tomorrow afternoon. And we're going to kind of present conversations between some guests, some chats with students, conversations with faculty, and then we'll show you some of the content. You might see the content as you look through in the reviews, in the different reviews, but we wanted to show you in one place, to show you everything in one place. So you don't have to be connecting the dots, but actually getting an idea of what's thesis. You might see this synchronically, or you might see it later, whenever you see it. So I haven't seen Elena in a few months. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Florencia. It's great to be here. Actually, this was the event of the week for me, to be able to be at SCI-Arc. As you well know, we've been away for 6 months. I think the last event in the school was the launch of my book, and then today is the day I come back. So thank you, Florencia, for putting together this phenomenal show. She has been arranging jurors from all around the world, from any time zone, and making sure that all the students get the attention and get the kind of reviews usually SCI-Arc is able to put together. And also thanks to all the staff that has put together this phenomenal green space where we can give you some insight in all the reviews and talk to the guests, and also talk to the students and collect their opinion and collect their thoughts about what they've just done, and also about their future and what they will do from tomorrow. So now I am joining the reviews of my students, but in 1 hour I will be here again, and we'll have a few conversations with our guests, meaning the jurors that are joining us from all around the world. We'll ask them about thesis, what the results of this thesis is, what their suggestion is, their feedback, and then we also will interview Hernandez Alonso. I have a special things for him to talk about. Actually, I collected the images of thesis for 15 years, and so we'll talk about the past of thesis. And we will finish also with the future of thesis, talking to the new thesis coordinator. I want to take this opportunity to thank Florencia for the fantastic 5 years she's done this job, because without her, this fantastic endeavor could not be possible. So thank you for the creativity, the eye, the impeccable taste, and most of all, for keeping us all together during this time of the pandemic. So thank you again, and I will see you in 1 hour on the Spin Room. Thank you. Hi, welcome everybody. This is Elena Manferdini. I am the graduate program chair of SCI-Arc, and I am now in the Spin Room talking to you at home about our thesis at SCI-Arc. I will interview a few guests that have been joining us in the past 2 days of reviews, and I will share some students' work, and we'll also talk to Hernandez Alonso, the director of the program. We are now set up live at SCI-Arc. We haven't been here for 6 months, and we set up a screen for you to actually be connected to all the activities that have been going on online in the past 2 days, and they will continue all day today, tomorrow, and culminating in graduation on Sunday. So we're here joined by Patricia Olynyk. She has a practice as an artist in New York and St. Louis, and she will introduce herself. She's been a guest of our juries in the past day and a half, and we have a few questions for her. Welcome, Patricia.
This has been a really invigorating day. I know you wanted me to introduce myself. I just stepped down after a 13-year term of director and chair of the Graduate School of Art at Washington University in St. Louis. And I'm a practicing artist. I also have a lot of academic appointments in other units, which allow me to unpack ideas from quite a number of fields by way of my own material practice. So I'm a fellow at the Institute for Public Health, Biodiversity Institute. I have a courtesy appointment in medical humanities, women gender studies, performing arts, and I will soon be named in the Center for Ethics at the School of Medicine And I also run a program in New York called the New York Laser Program, which looks at work being produced at the Arts, Science, Technology Nexus. And this is part of the Leonardo Group from the Leonardo Journal, which came out of MIT, and is part of the International Society of Arts, Science, and Technology. Leonardo Isas.
Thank you, Patricia, for the phenomenal presence, actually, in our thesis. I wanted to start this conversation asking a question about thesis. I know you come from a different field, which is the field of art. I think there are many affinities with the world of architecture, and clearly you're a woman that has seen the production of creative minds in multiple endeavors. I was wondering if you could talk about the diversity in terms of approach to thesis that you find between architecture and artists, if there is such, and how do you approach, from the artistic point of view, this architectural reviews that you've been part of in the past 2 days?
Oh, that's a great and very rich question. We could talk the next 24 hours and I would never finish all my comments. Well, first of all, the thesis between art and architecture. I mean, we are both producers of typically material things, though sometimes ephemeral things, or speculative architecture, or ephemeral projects that live in the art world, only on paper. But the thesis is really the development of a basic kind of premise or a set of issues or questions that are driving your work. The thesis is the way that you actually frame a project, the way that you articulate a place for that project in the world. We know that nothing that is made is ahistorical. So what histories are you looking at? What discourses are you attaching your work to? Who came before you? Where is the work situated in terms of its timeliness and relevancy to the here and the now? So the thesis, I think, is very, very, very critical. It has been my experience that in working with students in art design and architecture, if things are sort of scrambled up here, they're scrambled in terms of the articulation of the thesis premise. So I know in my program, we really work with the students to, not be so far into their heads that they lose the kind of flow that they have in a studio situation, but certainly to be able to critically analyze and understand intention in relationship to whatever is being produced, that there should be a healthy dialogue going on between those two things, and also understanding the difference between what drives a studio practice and what the essential question or issue that work addresses, how that gets communicated by the work itself. So, what's been wonderful about the thesis reviews today is seeing how the students in the architecture program, the graduate architecture program and thesis class, are moving towards these incredible speculative projects that take on much larger issues driving contemporary culture. There's nothing conventional or orthodox about any of the projects that I've seen today. And in fact, the drivers of a lot of these projects, I would say, are the same driver. There's been a shift of the psychological framework around the current moment, but also a reflection on the past.
No, I can see this. I mean, I think everybody somehow acted on a paradigm that has been always put forward before. I mean, for 20 years, we talked about the digital work, and this medium has been there. And there are many levels at which we already participate virtually in this creative medium. And I think at this point, what is interesting, though, is that it becomes the main medium. So it's very difficult to do anything else. And I think it was interesting to see actually how then the thesis had to change to be able to act within and perform within that box. I mean, we just saw one video, as you were mentioning before, of a student that was 3D printing in China, a full-scale building, somehow using and leveraging what we have at our availability to still produce something that was physical at a larger scale. And so that technology that maybe was there before now forces us to be used that the purest level somehow, that there is no more a hybrid. It seems like the hybrid is gone. Either the digital has taken over and the analog has been pushed backward at this time in the thesis. And it was interesting to see what we do when we are completely plugged. Now, sometimes you could think of working unplugged without digital tools. Now we're looking at the purest sense how it is that you work completely plugged, beginning to end.
Yeah, absolutely. All of those things are very astute. And, you know, through all of this, what's curious is the redirection of our attention to ourselves. You know,
True.
there's been this really interesting redirection and a re-exploration of what it is we know about how it is we live in the world. I mean, it's become a really kind of a conceptual, you know, psychological kind of interesting kind of mental gymnastics or experimentation. It's really, really a curious time we live in, but it has made me look back at everything that I've experienced and what I know by way of the virtual. It's made me really rethink how I'm going to actually be teaching the history of all the artists that I know who are engaged in virtual practices, and how they were really a kind of precursor for today. But there is a fundamental shift in everybody's behavior right now with regard to shifting to online presence only. I mean, there's a kind of ghost in that machine, don't you think?
I thought today that it's very important to understand the point of entry in any project, in the thesis, and even in the medium, the point of entry in the medium. So it becomes interesting to see that maybe some of the technology has been out there for a long time and only now has been leveraged to this level. And I agree with you, there is a moment of awareness, because we cannot do without that awareness. I mean, now that you're forced through one channel of expression, it becomes important that we're critical about that. And actually that channel of expression is understood in its nuances. And if it was before taken casually, or there were many things that could go in that box, now it's very clear that we have to organize that box because that box becomes much more nuanced now that that is the only one we use in order to create. And I agree with you that all the time we look at a piece of artwork, you then redefine not only what comes at the end and after that, but also somehow reorganizes your understanding of the artwork before. And I think that also happens with architecture. When something new happens, there is a point of entry in the project. And I think thesis is that awareness of understanding how your interest somehow has a place, a meaningful place in a lineage of work that has been done before, and how then your project can change the way you look at the past and somehow maybe and hopefully change the way in which we could do, at least partially, things in the future. So I think that that moment of awareness is where the students somehow transform from being students to being architects, let's say. I think it's a transformative moment, the one of thesis. I mean, I'm sure you've seen this in many ways. It's not just about your personal interest or the interest of your instructor. It's a moment where you own a discourse and you somehow position your discourse within the discourse of other people. And I think doing that through this specific medium of the TV and the digital and the screen has for sure made us aware of the history of the digital that happened before and what will happen in the future in a much more specific way than it was done before, I think, now.
Absolutely. And the affect of that, I think, will also make us much more ocular-centric, because, of course, the experience of an immersive space is temperature and smell and sound and all, and whether or not you have spatialized sound and how all of this, you know, creates a kind of crescendo of experience in some way. There's the kind of sensorial apparatus being, you know, filled from every direction. And now we have the screen and we have this highly ocular centric way of experiencing what it is that we're sharing with one another. And so this is very interesting as well. The philosopher Martin Jay talked about the primacy and of the eye, right? And I do think now there's going to be some interesting writing coming out of the ways in which the Umwelt, or the unique sensorial apparatus of humans, is going to be experiencing, you know, environments by way of the screen. It's a completely different experience, right?
I couldn't agree more. I was looking at a show that just opened in March, and it was about the sense of touch. And in a way, and clearly, little did they know that the exhibition was about to close a few days later, actually. And the whole exhibition was about how touch has evolved, actually, as a way of interaction. And there was part of the installation that was about digital touch or intellectual touch or emotional touch that had nothing to do really with the physical one. And it became interesting to me to realize that at the moment where touch might never come back, shaking somebody else's hand or a hug or those kind of connections that we understand as being basic of the human relationship, already had a big shift through the digital medium, and how those mediums are even transferring the idea of touch into something that is visual sometimes, or is even sound oriented. And so it is true that certain element or sensorial quality then aspect of our experience are maybe toned down versus other are turned up in this experience and awareness.
Right.
So Patricia, thank you for your fantastic insights on the world of architecture in Thesis. I want to thank you for your time and send you back to the reviews. I'm sure that Marcin is waiting for you. Thank you very much for the time you have had with us today. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. And we'll see you back in reviews.
Fantastic. Thank you.